this show made some news when Rex Ryan joined us in his weekly spot on Monday, and I asked him the question if he expects to interview for the Jet head coaching job. And joining us right now is another former head coach of the New York Jets. The last time this team won a division title, he was the coach, Coach Herm Edwards, who, of course, is an ESPN NFL analyst. He's kind enough to join us on the show this morning. First off, Herm, Happy New Year. Appreciate your time.
Oh, my pleasure. Happy New Year to you, all the football fans. Obviously, big week for a lot of teams entering the playoffs. It'll be interesting to see what they do with their players. I know a lot of teams are talking about not playing some of their starters. The league is really over the years. It's kind of interesting. I thought football players played football, but I guess they play football sometimes, not all the time anymore.
I definitely want to get your thoughts on that. But I got to start with this, Coach. I mean, Rex says he expects to interview. Do you expect to interview for the Jet head coaching job as well?
Do you say what?
Do you expect?
No. I've had my fun. No. I'm good.
Well,
I am good.
Coach, I am curious, though, right? There's been so much made this year. Hey, it's really tough to be a first-time head coach in New York, but you were in that spot and had success. So how do you view just the difficulty of taking over this team here in 2024 and, being a guy who maybe doesn't have previous head coaching experience to fall back on?
Well, I think the one thing, the person, whoever obviously gets that job, and whoever gets the GM job, I think that's very important. They got to be hooked together. They have to be online together as far as how they evaluate players, what they see going forward. This is a talented roster. There's no doubt about that. I think the big decision you're going to have to make is at the quarterback. Does a new head coach, does a new GM want to continue to go on with a 41-year-old quarterback who still has talent? There's no doubt about that. I mean, that's going to be the big question. And then I've always said this, when you talk about quarterback situations, the question you always got to ask yourself, if we decide to move on from a quarterback, who are you going to get? I've always said that. It's easy to say we want this, we want that, but who are you going to get? So I think that's the question they'll have to answer. And then from there, I think it's pretty much, just trying to figure out, what went wrong, how do you fix it? And that's what you do when you obviously take over a job like this and you're part of an organization. How do you fix it? How do you get these guys winning? They played a lot of close games. Now they just got to find a way to win those.
Jets lead the NFL in blown leads in the fourth quarter, so you're absolutely right about that as we talk with Coach Herm Edwards, ESPN NFL analyst, former head coach of the Jets and the Kansas City Chiefs. And, Coach, something I talked about earlier on the show, there's a lot of talk for really both New York teams, the Jets and the Giants, about potentially drafting a quarterback. The Jets have not ever drafted a quarterback and had that guy sit since you were coaching the team when Chad Pennington, of course, was a first-round pick, and he sat for a few years. In your experience, what do you think goes into potentially sitting a quarterback? Could that work in today's NFL? And then how did you know Chad was ready to be the guy? What did you see from him to let you know, hey, it's time to hand the team over to Chad, our first-round pick, and let's see what he could do?
Well, I think for me, I go back to my days of playing. You got to listen to your eyes when you go to work every day and you watch them practice, right? I mean, that all that other stuff, you don't listen to the other stuff. You just listen to your eyes. That's how you evaluate players. You don't get involved in the jersey number on a guy because sometimes you look at the jersey number and it belongs to a guy that's been in the league a long time and you have obviously admiration for that guy and you have respect for him, but you got to listen to your eyes and you just watch practice and you watch every day in and out. With Chad, it was simple. I mean, we had hit a bad rut and we needed a spark. And you can change a lot of positions on the football team. That's not going to give you a spark. When you change the quarterback position, that obviously gets attention of everybody. And I told Chad when he took over for Vinny, I talked to Vinny. Vinny understood it. We weren't very good. I mean, we were a good team just coming off the playoffs, but we weren't coaching good enough. We weren't playing good enough. And I told Vinny, I said, it's real simple. I said, Vinny, you know this. I can change a lot of positions. That doesn't get people's attention. When you change the quarterback position, that gets everyone's attention. And rightly so. It got our attention. We ended up 2-5. We ended up winning the division and moving on to the playoffs. So I just think you have to know your spots. You got to know your team. Obviously, that's important. And then you got to make decisions like that sometimes.
Coach, you talked about it at the top of our conversation. A lot of teams sitting starters That includes the Philadelphia Eagles, so they're going to rest Saquon Barkley. He's not going to get a chance to chase the record. There's a giant angle, too, I want to ask you about, but just as a former Eagle, obviously a coach in the league, an analyst now, what are your thoughts on the Eagles not giving Saquon the opportunity to break that rushing record?
Oh, I think it's a shame. It's a historical record. I think the Eagle fans would like to see it done. I think the offensive linemen would like to see it done. I'm a little bit kind of caught off guard with Saquon not understanding the importance of, I get, look, you're in the playoffs. You don't want to get the guy hurt. I get it. But the guy's carried the ball 312 times, 340-something times already. If you worry about getting hurt, then you're in the wrong profession. Football players play football. I would say this. I would suggest, if I was there, hey, if you want to go, we'll go you for 20 touches of it. You need 100 yards, basically. Tell the offensive lineman, hey, look, this is the number. We'd like to break the record, because that's what records are there for. I mean, those Philadelphia fans would be excited if he broke that record in Philadelphia. There's no doubt about it. Football people would be excited. But if he chooses not to, that's his choice. He's that kind of guy. He's humble. But for me, if I'm that close to a record, I'm trying to break a record. That's what they sit there for.
It sounds like Eagles coach Nick Sirianni came to him and told him he was making the decision.
Yeah.
And it was basically out of Saquon's hands.
Well, that's okay. That's coach's decision. I'm not going to second guess coach. I mean, that's what he wants to do. I would put it in the players' hands. I mean, this record's been sitting there for 40 years.
Yep.
This ain't no like, okay, it's 100 yards. You make 100 yards, whatever. You break a record for making 100 yards 3 games in a row. No, you're talking about a record that's been sitting there for 40 years. And they don't get it right now. But when you get my age and you look back at your history and you look at what you achieved maybe in your history, it's going to mean something to you. And to sit there and say, I didn't have an opportunity to do that, and maybe he'll say that's okay. I don't know.
Coach Herm Edwards.
Choice, so that's fine.
Coach Herm Edwards joining us here on ESPN New York. Jake Asman in for Dave and Rick on DNR. Coach, you look around the league, there's a lot of teams sitting starters this week. Just your thoughts on that, like the philosophy seemingly different than when you were coaching on teams trying to rest up guys ahead of the playoffs. Well,
I was under a great coach and Coach Vermeil, and the thing I learned playing with Coach Vermeil was that football players play football, and that's what you do. And there were times we were in the playoffs, we went to the Super Bowl, we were in the playoffs numerous times. I never thought about as a player, because we're getting ready to go to the playoffs. Coach arrested me, I'd have fought the coach. He arrested me. I play football. This is what I do. My claim to fame is I never missed a start. I never missed a practice as an NFL player. And that's just me. But now I get it. You can say, well, he's an old guy. He doesn't understand. I understand it's football. Football's football. You play football. That's what you rest up on the offseason for. You rest on the offseason. All those players are going to rest this week, that aren't going to the playoffs, all those guys. Well, why don't we say with the team's not going to the playoffs, why just play just clear the benches. Let all the second. Let's do like the preseason. All you veterans don't play the last week of the season. Are you kidding me? You play football. That's what you signed on to do.
Herm Edwards is our guest here, ESPN NFL analyst, of course, former head coach with the Jets and with the with the Kansas City Chiefs. Played for the Eagles, as you heard Herm there talk about. And Coach, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about a player that you coached at the college level. How about Jaden Daniels and what he's been able to do this year? First year starting in Washington, leading that team to the playoffs. You had him at Arizona State, of course, when you were the coach there. How proud are you watching Jaden Daniels do what he's doing?
No, talk to him every week. He's doing fantastic. It's not surprising, by the way, for me. Not surprising at all. He is a unique player. Reminds me a lot of a guy that used to play for us in Philadelphia when I was there, Randall Cunningham. And I told him that when I first started coaching. So they're Washington's doing really good. That fan base is excited about him, and they should be. They've got a quarterback that's going to be there for 10 or more years, and they've got to be excited. And I think Philadelphia now has to look at those guys and say, well, we thought Dallas was going to be the team that was going to obviously give us a run, and now it's Washington. So it's going to be interesting in the years to come.
And it just shows you how quickly it could change if you get the coach and quarterback situation figured out. There's a lot of Giants fans, Coach, that are very, very down in the dumps this week after they won a game, and now they're picking 4 instead of 1, and maybe they win again Sunday with Philly resting a lot of their key players. What would you say to the Giants fans out there who are disgusted with the team actually winning a game? You said it best. You play to win the game, but there were a lot of Giants fans very upset that the Giants won a game on Sunday.
Yeah, those players in the locker room are not, though. Those players are trying to win. It's called professional football. They're professional. They want to win a game. They want the joy of going in that locker room saying, we won a game. And they won a game, too. They played really well. And they're not worried about draft choices. They're not worried about it. You know, what's going to happen is what's going to happen. And they got to figure out a way to get a quarterback. There's a lot of ways you can get one. You can get them through draft. You can get through free agency. Hey, Sam Darnold's going to come available. You want to pay the money for Sam Darnold? That's up to you. You got to make that decision. But I'm glad for them. I'm happy for those guys. People don't realize how hard it is to win a game and the joy you have when you win a game as a team and you walk into that locker room, regardless of how many you won or not. Those players aren't sitting there worried about no draft choice. Kidding me?
No doubt. As far as the quarterbacks in this class coming out, your thoughts on the perception is there's the top 2, right? Shedeur Sanders from Colorado and Cam Ward from Miami. What have you seen from both those guys? Do you look at them as potential franchise QBs?
Well, I don't look at any of those guys as franchise QBs until they come to the NFL. And a lot of it has to do with the system and the coach they have. You know, and that's the truth. With a lot of these quarterbacks that end up failing early, we've seen that. You see that in Sam Darnold. You see that in Jared Goff. You see that in Baker Mayfield. You see that in a lot of quarterbacks that for some reason might have been in the wrong system and it just didn't fit. And all of a sudden the guy is, first-round picks. And Sam Darnold was first-round pick of the Jets. And you see that, and they go somewhere else, and all of a sudden you say, well, how did that happen? And that's what you got to be careful of when you pick a quarterback. Make sure the system fits the quarterback. It's not your system. The system belongs to the quarterback. And a coach that understands that and a coach that can really look at a system and say, look, I can massage the system, allow this guy to play. That's Jaden Daniels, right? Cliff Kingsbury understood that. Cliff Kingsbury said, you know what? I've had a quarterback like this, Kyler Murray, and I can fit the system around Jaden Daniels. And that's why Jaden Daniels is successful, along with his talent, along with being smart and all that other stuff. But the system fits what he can do. And this is why we have failure at the quarterback position in the NFL. It's because a lot of these kids are put into systems that they cannot play. It's not their strength, and then they fail.
Finally, Coach, your thoughts on the Vikings-Lions matchup, Sunday Night Football. Winner's the 1 seed, and how cruel is it? The loser not only is not going to be a division champion, but they're a wild card team playing in the wild card round. Your thoughts on that matchup?
Yes. Well, I think it's going to be a great matchup, and you can't say enough about the Detroit Lions, what they've been able to accomplish. The coach has done a fabulous job. Jared Goff resurrected his career there. And then you have another quarterback, Sam Darnold, who went to Minnesota. And obviously, who would have thunk that Minnesota would have the record there? I promise you, nobody was thinking that Minnesota was going to have the record they have right now. You can say, I did. No, you didn't. No one did.
Nope.
And it's a great story. And if you look at that division, the NFC North, it's probably the best division in football. You're going to have 3 teams come out of there, from playoff teams, and all of them have 11 or more wins. That's the crazy part. Now, you might have 3 teams come out of the AFC West as well if it falls right. You could have Kansas City, Denver, and the Chargers. So that would be kind of interesting as well.
Really is unbelievable. Coach, I always appreciate our time together. Thanks so much for calling in so early out on the West Coast. Continued success on ESPN, and I'm going to continue to introduce you as the last coach that won the division for the New York Jets because it's 20-something years already, Coach. The pain never stops.
Oh, boy. They'll get it figured out. They'll be okay.
I appreciate it, Coach. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, my friend.